We'll move on now to that deepening crisis over the missing Washington Post columnist who appears to have been murdered inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Turkish officials are citing mounting evidence that the killing of Jamal Khashoggi is tied to the Saudi regime. But President Trump is emphasizing the Saudi denial, saying they are innocent until proven guilty. ABC's Ian Pannell is in Istanbul with the latest. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, George, from the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, which is now at the centre of what looks increasingly like a possible murder mystery and certainly a global diplomatic crisis involving Saudi Arabia, Turkey and the United States. President Trump has expressed more than one opinion on this, but the question still remains, will there be a proper investigation and will we get any clear answers? This morning, will President Trump respond to the alleged murder of Washington Post writer Jamal Khashoggi? Overnight, Trump telling Fox Business,
"It depends whether or not the king or the crown prince knew about it, in my opinion. Number one, what happened, but whether or not they knew about it. If they knew about it, that would be bad."
Trump also comparing the situation to sexual assault allegations made against Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, telling the Associated Press, "You're guilty until proven innocent. I don't like that." But one major difference, evidence. The Post columnist seen entering the Saudi consulate, but he hasn't been seen since. And as a vocal critic of the Crown Prince, he had many enemies in Saudi. This morning, Trump's top diplomat Mike Pompeo was on the ground in Turkey, meeting with the country's foreign minister and president. This after a photo op with King Salman and a meeting with the Saudi Crown Prince. Turkish authorities are accusing the Saudis of murdering Khashoggi in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, something the royal family denies.
Really strong and old allies. So we face a lot of challenges together.
This morning, according to a report from the New York Times, at least 9 of 15 suspects identified by Turkish authorities worked for the Saudi security services, military or other government ministries. Nearly 2 weeks after the journalist's disappearance, Turkish investigators searched the consulate for 9 hours. But just hours before, a cleaning crew seen here entered the consulate ahead of the investigative team's arrival. On Tuesday, the Turkish president said investigators were searching for toxic materials, suggesting the consulate could have been recently painted. According to the AP, investigators found certain evidence Khashoggi was killed there, but sources telling ABC there are no conclusions so far. Turkish officials giving the Washington Post scans of passports, members of an alleged hit squad. According to the Wall Street Journal this morning, Turkish officials have shared evidence of a gruesome audio recording with the United States and Saudi Arabia that reportedly indicates how Khashoggi was killed in the office of the Saudi Consul General. On the recording, a voice can allegedly be heard recommending other people present listen to some music while he dismembered Mr. Khashoggi's body. So the detective work continues here this morning. ABC sources confirming that attempts to get into the Consul General's house were rebuffed by the Saudis yesterday. They're going to try again today. We've also just heard that investigators went to the home of the fiancé of Mr. Khashoggi, collected DNA samples. The question is, will they be able to match it against anything they've discovered inside the consulate here? George?
Okay, and thanks. Let's bring our chief White House correspondent, John Carl, for more on all this. And, John, we just saw how the evidence is mounting that the Saudis were behind this, but the president's been emphasizing the Saudi denials, apparently taking arms sales already off the table, but he is under pressure to take some action.
Well, and George, he did say that there would be severe punishment. Those were his words if it turned out the Saudis did this. But he has made it clear he doesn't want to jeopardize arms sales. He's made it clear he doesn't like the idea of sanctions. So it's unclear what the White House would do. I would look for the action, though, to come from Congress. We hear members of Congress, both parties, talking about sanctions and also about ending U.S. support for the Saudi war in Yemen.
The president also defending himself against the idea that his possible investments from Saudi Arabia in the past may have something to do with his stance.
Yes, as a matter of fact, he said he has no financial ties to Saudi Arabia right now. As you know, though, the president has had in the past very deep financial ties to the Saudis, going back to 1991 when he was in financial trouble and they bought his yacht.
And John, the president on this media blitz heading into the midterms, giving a series of interviews, as we've seen, taking off on all of his perceived adversaries. He's taking on the Fed chair. He's taking on Elizabeth Warren. He's calling Stormy Daniels horseface.
Yeah, he's done more interviews, taken more questions from the press, George. in the past week than he has during any previous time period of his presidency. All over the map, going after his enemies harsh. And also, George, in an interview with AP, making it clear that if the Republicans were to lose the House, that he would not be to blame. He was asked directly, would you bear any responsibility? And his answer was a simple no.
Even as the elections are becoming nationalized. John Carl, thanks very much.